Cess Talk Sports, BY's Poly Sports Tea Time, where we pour hot truth into the cold silence that surrounds race, power, and Black womanhood in sports. Today's episode, Broken Skies, episode 3, Chicago Sky, Media, and Black Bodies. And let me be clear, we're not here for box scores or highlight reels. We're here for the uncomfortable truth. The truth about narrative manipulation. The truth about power plays. The truth about what happens when Black excellence stops playing nice for white-led institutions that think they own it. What's happening with the Chicago Sky right now isn't just a rough season. It's a case study in how sports media becomes an active weapon of institutional violence, from the calculated takedown of Coach Teresa Weatherspoon to the dog whistle targeting of Chennedy Carter to the coordinated smearing of Angel Reese. This is a blueprint for how Black athletes, especially Black women, are built up for profit, broken down for control, and then blamed for their own destruction. And let's not act like this is new. This is Chicago, a city where race and sports have been in a long, ugly entanglement. The legendary Scoop Jackson called it out years ago in his landmark piece, Imperfect Union, Race and Sports, a Chicago Relationship. He described the Chicago sports media machine as one that feeds off Black labor, fetishizes Black bodies, and then turns the same bodies into villains the second they push back or stop producing. So today we're pulling receipts, we're mapping timelines, we're naming press leaks, we're talking about scapegoats, and we're going to call out what too many in this city pretend not to see: how media collusion protects management, buries truth, and punishes Black defiance. And for this conversation, I had to bring in my day one, my co-host, my co-conspirator, and truth-telling, Political Lil. She's the one who breaks it down like a scholar, delivers it with a side eye, and never lets institutions off the hook. Lil, it's time we talk about what's really going on in Chicago.
Hey, let's get straight to it. The firing of Teresa Weatherspoon after just one season was a calculated move and a loud one. It wasn't just a coaching change. It was a disruption to the chemistry and trust this young Sky team was starting to build. Under Coach Teaspoon, both Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso had standout rookie seasons. And Chennedy Carter, back in the league, had her best pro season yet. They flourished, they grew, they bought in, and the fans were too. But when you got a front office that pulls the plug on Teaspoon without any public accountability, it wasn't just bad for optics, it was organized sabotage. That move lit a fire inside the fan base and left both players and supporters questioning the motives of this franchise. What followed in 2025 has been nothing short of a PR nightmare. The Sky got off to the worst season in franchise history. They lost more than half of the games, and not just close games either. We're talking about multiple blowouts. They're underperforming on both ends of the court. And who's catching the heat? Not the GM who built this roster. Not the leadership who fired a respected Black woman coach after 1 year. No, the blame is shifting strategically onto players and a new coach who inherited a flawed blueprint. And now we're watching it happen in real time. General Manager Jeff Pagliari is out here using the media to do damage control. He's highlighting Angel Reese shooting stats and turnover numbers. He's feeding narrative about locker room frustration. He's pushing this ideal that it's execution, not construction, that's the problem. And now he got white beat reporters jumping onto Black social media platforms pushing excuses about this organization's piss-poor performance like a politician in the pulpit on Sunday ahead of an election. This is what we call narrative engineering. It's a slow drip of blame onto everyone except the person who actually is responsible for this mess. The one who made the draft pick, signed the free agents, fired the coach, and set the direction of the team. And if you don't see the setup, you're just not paying attention. So let's get into the program. This is Broken Skies, episode 3, Chicago Sky, Media, and Black Bodies.
Mid-June, GM Jeff Pagliocca stepped to the mic with "step up and be more consistent." Then pointed at about 10 points per game, less than 36% field goals, and turnovers up. Numbers are numbers. But when you're the face of the franchise, an all-star, and leading the league in boards in year 2, that's not performance talk. That's positioning. Her start wasn't flawless. It wasn't failing either. Spotlight knows stats like a chart sheet equals laying a paper trail for later. See, this is how the play works. Frame the star, a young Black woman who is your brand, as the issue, not the product of a broken roster and no true point guard. Strip out context, coaching change, instability, front office misses, reduce leadership to a box score, and call it accountability. The real message wasn't to Reese, it was to fans, ownership, and media. Don't look at the front office. Don't look at the draft. Don't look at free agency. Look at her. We're not buying it. This is a calculated deflection to shield the structure that failed the team. Name the blueprint now, or they'll run the same play next season.
Now let's get into the real story behind the team's construction, or what I like to call Jeff Pagliocci's off-season smoke and mirror. This team was sold to the public as having the makings of a new big three. You had Angel Reese already proving herself as one of the most dominant young players in the game. You had Camila Cardoso forcing the paint. And then in a draft night spectacle, the Sky added Haley Van Lith, fresh off a point guard rocky season at LSU and a recovery season at TCU. It was a headline move meant to spark buzz, sponsorship, and hope. But here's the thing. Building a winning team isn't about flash. It's about fit, cohesion, and depth. And this roster, it was thrown together like a highlight reel wish list, not a championship blueprint. No real point guard, no proven shooters, no veteran glue pieces, just vibes and media rollout. Now, fast forward to the start of the 2025 season, a 2-6 blowout record, chemistry that looks like confusion. And instead of owning up to the fact that the team was poorly constructed, the GM is leaning on a very familiar excuse: blame the players, specifically blame Angel Reese. By pointing out her stat line and lack of efficiency, Pagliocci using her performance to cover his own failed strategy. This is what institutional protection looks like. A GM who gambled on names instead of needs, who made emotional moves in free agency and then tried to sell it as visionary. And now that vision is cracking under the spotlight, he's using the media to reframe it all as a failure of execution and not leadership. Let's be real. You can't ask a roster to deliver championship results when you hand them a G League blueprint. But when you've got power, media relationships, and a press willing to echo your framing, you can shift the narrative just enough to dodge the consequences. And that's exactly what we're watching here in Chicago.
Yep, and Tyler Marsh to shield. November 2024. Weeks after they fired Teresa Weatherspoon, the Sky dropped a press release. Tyler Marsh is the new head coach. No press conference. No welcome to Chicago. Just slipped in between free agency chatter and draft talk. That's not a leader hire. That's an absorb the blow hire. Letting go a teaspoon after one season was already messy. She had players developing, the fan base energized, the locker room on her side. Front office, silent. No explanation, no accountability, just move the spotlight. Now Marsh in the chair, but the role is clear. Shield, not leader. Season opens with blowout losses, bad chemistry, media gets fed, Reese's shooting percentage, locker room growing pains, adjusted to the system. What's missing? Marsh's inexperience, the shock of losing a trusted black woman coach, the GM handing him a chaotic roster with no vet point guard. This is by design. If the season takes, and it's already leaning that way, Pagliocci wants it framed as rookie coach struggles or locker room issues. Then when ownership makes a change, Marsh, he the fall guy. That's how institutions protect themselves. They don't fix the system. They find someone to take the hit while they reload behind the scenes. Marsh is already lined up for the quiet dismissal that covers a loud disaster.
And let's talk about the media's role in the whole operation, because the Chicago Sky front office isn't doing this alone. They got amplifiers, and they're the loudest one in sport media itself. From the moment the Sky started struggling this season, we saw a wave of headlines pointing directly to Angel Reese's shooting percentage, her turnover account, and her so-called emotional reaction. Now ask yourself this. When have you seen this kind of laser focus on a second-year player who's leading the league in rebounding and is already an all-star? The answer is only when the black player is black, outspoken, and inconvenient for the system. These media narratives, they don't come out of nowhere. They're seeded, nurtured, and then echoed through beat reporters, podcasters, post-game commentary, and so-called inside leaks. It's not just reporting, it's reputation management. And the one getting protected here isn't Angel or Coach Marsh. It's the GM. You'll notice there's no widespread critique of his draft strategy. No front page stories about questionable free agency moves. No breakdowns of how his roster lacks balance or leadership at the point guard position. Instead, the narrative is simple. The young stars need to grow up. The coach is learning on the job. The GM, he's doing the best he can with what he's got. And that right there is how institutional power protects itself, by using the media as its mouthpiece. And that's exactly why we do this broadcast, because we're not here for the surface stories or the sanitized scripts. We're here to trace the fingerprints, connect the dots, and name the patterns. The Sky isn't just losing games, they're losing control of the narrative. They built that on shaky ground. And the media has been co-signing that collapse while blaming the wrong people.
Facts, Lil. Facts. Let's talk about scapegoating and strategy. Franchising chaos, young talented roster, GM with a busted off season, coach with no backup. Media pipeline ready to run interference. This is the Chicago Sky's 2025 blueprint. Scapegoating, not as a one-off, but as the whole damn game plan. Reese, 1 minute, she's the face of the league. Future, rebounding records, packed arenas, running the combo online. Next minute, picked apart for every miss, every turnover, every press conference side eye. And the media not asking why she's carrying a broken system, just why she's not hitting 50% from the floor. Tyler Marsh, he handed a flawed roster, fractured locker room, sky-high expectations, no vet point guard, no offensive identity, players still reeling from losing a coach they trusted. Instead of support, he's marked expendable. Whispers too young, too inexperienced, wrong fit. Seen this play before. And all of it, the scrutiny, the blame, the doubt, somehow never lands on the architect, Jeff Pagliocca, the GM who drafted for the headlines, not system fit, who let a championship caliber coach walk and replaced her with a name nobody rolled out to the city. Who floats just enough media taking points to say, it's not me, it's them. That's institutional scapegoating. Not just blame, but a whole narrative built to protect power. Weaponize stats, quotes, rumors. Turn humanity into instability. Turn passion into a problem. And when the house burns, the GM walks clean while the press releases talks about rebuilding the culture. We're not buying it. Not here. Not today. Not on tea time.
Now let's talk about the heat being directed at the Sky Stars, because this is where the distraction strategy goes full throttle. At the center of the storm is Angel Reese, one of the most dynamic and marketable players in that the WNBA has seen in a few years. She's not just a fan favorite, she's a cultural force. She led the league in rebounding as a rookie, check. All-star starting in her sophomore season, check. Bringing millions of eyes to the W, done. And yet somehow Angel Reese is being treated like a liability instead of a leader. Let's look at the receipts. In June of 2025, Reese fired off a blunt message to reporters after practice saying, I can't trust any of y'all, short and sweet. She was responding to how her post-game comments were being twisted by the media, cut, clipped, reworded to fit a certain narrative. She wasn't wrong. Headlines weren't focused on her double-doubles. They were focused on her attitude, on her confidence, on whether she was too emotional or hurting the team chemistry. Let me translate that for you. They don't want a black woman who leads, speaks boldly, and refuses to shrink. This is what happens when media bias meets institutional protection. Reese's excellence, her ability to rebound, to hustle, to ignite a crowd is no longer enough. Because when things start falling apart in the front office, the safest move for leadership is to make the star player the problem. Not the team construction, not the coaching instability, not the GM, but the woman who refuses to smile through the dysfunction. And let's be clear, this isn't new. We've seen this playbook before. Black women in sports are always given a narrower margin. Too confident, arrogant. Too passionate, too aggressive. Too proud, that's problematic. Angel Reese is facing the full force of that double standard. And the Sky's silence only makes it worse. Instead of publicly backing her, instead of defending their star from lazy media narratives, the organization is letting it ride. And by doing so, they're giving those narratives power. They're letting her be painted as a villain of the franchise's losing season, even as she's out-rebounding almost every player in the league and showing up every single night. Let's also not forget, this isn't just about Angel. It's about what she represents. A young black woman who built her brand, speaks her mind, and doesn't play the grateful athlete trope. She's not here to just sell tickets or take blame, and that makes her dangerous. to those who want to control that narrative. So when you see headlines nitpicking her shot selection or questioning her leadership, understand this. It's not an analysis, it's an agenda, a way to move the spotlight off the GM's bad decisions and the franchise's internal dysfunction and onto the player who dares to be visible and unbothered by it all. This is about protecting power in that system. Black excellence has become a threat the moment it stops being convenient.
Teresa Weatherspoon, the takedown. One season, 13-27. Roster gutted by injuries, rebuild still in motion, gone before the foundation was even poured. No culture fully built, no chemistry locked in, no system given a full run. And the front office didn't even fake gratitude. No statement of thanks, no accountability, just a quiet press note and a pivot like it was nothing. But there's nothing quiet about firing a black woman coach after one season in the league, already short on black women in leadership. What made it worse, the media playing along. No hard questions, no pushback, no honest look at how unfair it was to judge her on a roster stitched together with duct tape. Lazy framing filled the gap. Underwhelming season. Disappointing results. Time for a new direction. Let's be real. What was underwhelming was giving a first-time WNBA coach no veteran point guard, a patched roster, and then yanking the rug before she had a shot. What was truly disappointing was the lack of support for a coach with championship credibility and players, Reese, Carter, Cardoso, fully bought in. This wasn't about basketball. This was about finding the clean scapegoat. Didn't work, let's move on. And the media carried that water. Story ended with her instead of digging deeper. Where were the op-eds asking why she didn't get the same grace as other first-year coaches? Where was the interrogation of how she inherited a broken system, not a blank slate? Why didn't anyone hold the GM accountable for the roster he handed her? Because the goal wasn't to fix the problem. It was to protect the structure, to keep the power circle intact. Firing a black woman gets easier when you've already set the narrative that the team needed to change, makes it palatable. Teaspoon didn't fail, she was failed. Denied time, resources, and the roster to succeed. And when the turnaround didn't come fast enough, they made sure the story ended with her name, not theirs. That's not sports strategy. That's corporate survival. And that's why we're naming it.
All right, y'all. Let's get into some real talk about what's going on behind the scenes with the Chicago Sky's front office. After a brutal season, the big question is, who's really taking the heat and who's dodging it? Last season, the current GM, we won't even say his name right now, and he's reportedly under heavy pressure now. And what does he do? Same thing he did last year. He shifts the media spotlight away from his own decision-making and points it to other scapegoats. Last year, Teresa Weatherspoon and the players on the roster. This year, another black coach, Marsh, and the players on the current team. This is classic deflection. Protect the top dogs by putting the blame on those seen as replaceable or more vulnerable. But here's the twist. The scapegoating plays into a long-standing pattern in sports media around black bodies, especially black women, athletes, and coaches. When things go wrong, it's those bodies on the front lines who get the harshest scrutiny. Their mistakes are exaggerated, their struggles ignored. Meanwhile, the real structure failures get swept under the rug. Let's be clear. The post-Weatherspoon era hasn't exactly been smooth sailing in terms of drafted and free agency. The Sky front office made questionable decisions, picks that didn't pan out, signings that underperformed. These moves didn't just affect wins and losses. They fueled instability inside the team. But the media, they barely questioned the GM or ownership's role in those decisions. Instead, they amplified the narrative that it's all on the coach's leadership, and the players. Attitude problem. It's like the GM story becomes the only story and everyone else is just a backdrop. And that's where media complicity becomes clear. They echo the GM's narrative, reinforcing scapegoating instead of pushing for accountability at the organizational level. This dynamic is especially damaging when you consider how black women in coaching and player roles are already being marginalized and scrutinized through the racial lens. So what do we end up with? A cycle where black bodies carry the blame for systemic failures, an old, tired story that keeps power safe while making scapegoats out of the most vulnerable and the most visible.
There's a special playbook they pull out when black women start shining. too bright in spaces they weren't supposed to dominate. And right now, Angel Reese and Chennedy Carter are reading that playbook in real time. The moment they brought energy, personality, and unapologetic blackness to the sky, the framing flipped. Suddenly, they're distractions, locker room problems, too emotional. Every team has drama, but when it's black women, it magically becomes a moral crisis that needs fixing. That's not sports reporting. That's coded policing of behavior. And the media is not running this solo. Social media is the perfect echo chamber. Reddit threads, Yahoo Sports comment sections, concerned trolling for places like the 9 basketball. Angel posts a cryptic lyric or emoji, blown up like it's a manifesto against the team. Chennedy ain't even on the roster. Claps back online, boom. Front page drama instead of basketball news. That's the machinery. Lead the storyline. Amplify the tension. Keep the public focused on the noise instead of the stat sheet. The effect, it chips away at their control over their own story. Scoop Jackson wrote it in Perfect Union. Chicago sports media has a long history of using selective storytelling to shape how the public sees black athletes. While Reese and Carter were putting in work last season, the headline that sticks is attitude, not achievement, chemistry issues, not double-doubles or game winners. That's not by accident, that's by design. Coverage like that week after week doesn't just annoy, it destabilizes. Plant seeds with fans, execs, sponsors. Suddenly it's not about your jumper, it's about whether you're worth the trouble. That's how the game gets played off the court. It's never just about performance. It's about controlling the image. If we don't call it out, the backlash becomes the whole story. And for players like Reese and Carter, the ball game starts slipping away before the buzzer even sounds.
See, Auntie, this is where the political game behind sports really shows its teeth. Because when you strip it down, these narratives about Reese and Carter aren't just sports gossip. They're tools, instruments designed to shape public opinion so that the organization can act with less pushback. You notice how the problem player label always gets dropped right before the contract negotiation, a coaching change, or a shift in team direction? It's preemptive damage control. You make the player look unstable, and suddenly the front office can say, it's not personal, it's business when they move them out. The other piece is amplification. Social media is a gold mine for this because it allows them to outsource the dirty work. They don't have to officially say Reese is a distraction. They just let her post and fan speculation do the heavy lifting. Then sports blogs and Twitter accounts pick it up, slap on the headline, and now it's a story that's out there. It's a feedback loop. A whisper becomes a headline. A headlines become common knowledge. And once something becomes common knowledge, it sticks whether it's true or not. And this is where I bring Scoop Jackson back into the chat. Because Imperfect Union lays this history out plain. Chicago media always had a complicated relationship with its black athletes, especially those who resisted being neatly packaged. You can see the same pattern from the days of Ben Wilson to Derrick Rose to now. The media machine alternates between celebration and vilifying black talent, depending on what narratives it serves, or the franchise bottom line at the moment. Teaspoon, Reese, and Carter, they aren't anomalies. They're the latest case study. What's wild is this coverage has a chilling effect on more than just two players. It sends a message to every young black athlete watching. Be careful how you speak, what you post, even how you celebrate a win. Because one wrong move and you're no longer the hero of your own highlight reel. That's a deeper play here. It's not about undermining a season. It's about disciplining the culture of black excellence in sports, making sure it stays palatable for the people in power. And that's why, Auntie, I call it what it is, media as a political weapon.
Let me tell you something about Chicago. This city runs on 2 playbooks, one for the game on the court and one for the game off it. And that second one, that's where the real power moves get made. Scoop Jackson didn't call his book Imperfect Union by accident. He laid it out plain. The relationship between race, sports, and power in this city has never been equal. The talent, black for decades. But the ownership, the decision makers, the gatekeepers who control what stories get told and how they're framed, that's been locked inside that same small circle. And if you're not in that circle, you don't get to write the script. That's exactly what's playing out with the Chicago Sky right now. The organization might let their black stars shine just enough to move tickets and jerseys, but the moment those stars start building their own platforms, telling their own stories, and expanding their influence, The tone shifts. Suddenly, management is concerned about chemistry, monitoring behavior, or evaluating the future direction. On the surface, it sounds polite, but underneath, it's about keeping the power where it's always been, at the top, behind closed doors and far from the players who actually built the buzz in the first place. And the media. That's the bridge that makes it all work. When leadership decides a player's image needs a little tarnish, they know exactly which reporters to call, exactly what to leak, and exactly how to frame it so the fans start talking. This isn't random, it's strategy. Just like Scoop said, the media here isn't separate from the sports institution, it's part of it. And protecting the brand and the leadership means dimming the spotlight on a black woman who's too popular, too outspoken, or too powerful. That's just business as usual in the imperfect union of Chicago sports.
Exactly, Auntie. What Scoop was pointing out in imperfect union is that the separation between the media, the organization, that's an illusion in Chicago. They're two arms of the same body. The Sky situation right now is textbook. You got management quietly shaping the narrative so they stay insulated from criticism, while their black stars take the public heat. And the heat ain't random, it's directed. You don't hear about the front office missteps on draft decisions or player development. You hear about angels tweet or body language on the bench. That's framing and it's intentional. The structure works like this. The institution decides what the public conversation should be. The media packages it in a way that feels organic, and the fans carry it like the gospel. In that cycle, players, especially black women, are kept in a reactive position. They're responding to stories they didn't start, defending themselves against narratives that were already seeded against them. Meanwhile, management stays above the fray, looking like a steady hand, even when they're the ones creating the instability behind the scenes. And here's the deeper cut. This isn't just about the Sky. This is Chicago sports DNA. Whether it was the Bulls in the post-Jordan era, the Bears and their QB controversies, or the Sky today, the script is still the same. Keep control of the story to keep control of the power. And in a city where black athletes make up the backbone of the product, but remain locked out at the highest levels of leadership, the imperfect union is more than a metaphor. It's a business model, which is why I say this. Until people who are the product, the players, the culture, the draw, have real seats at the decision-making tables, the dynamics won't change. The institution will keep using the media to protect itself, and players like Reese, Carter, even Coach Teaspoon will keep being positioned as problems instead of assets. And that's not a Chicago sports story. That's a Chicago power story.
See, here's the thing. The media can twist, turn, and chop up a story all they want, but they can't stop you from telling your own. That's where Malcolm J. Myler's empowerment framework comes in. Myler, thinker, scholar, and activist, breaks down exactly how marginalized groups, especially black athletes, can reclaim power through storytelling and media control. His framework boils down to three moves. 1, storytelling. Athletes have to tell their own truth and refuse to let the media write it for them. 2, athlete-led platforms. Build and own the spaces where you can speak freely without interference from teams, leagues, or sponsors. 3, media literacy. Teach fans to recognize the bias, the tricks, the coded language, and coverage so they stop falling for narratives that are meant to harm. When you take away the gatekeepers, you take away their ability to define you. And these young sisters like Angel Reese, they're catching on quick. Look at what Reese is doing on the court. Every rebound ripped down, every bucket dropped, every time she leaves the floor with her chin high after the noise, that's a statement. And a cha-ching to her pocket if they call it a me-bound. That's her saying, you don't get to write my ending. Her dominance isn't just in the stat lines, it's symbolic. It's narrative control in motion. A smile after a win, a measured answer in a press conference. Those moments are as much about reclaiming the story as they are about winning the game. Excellence becomes its own form of resistance. But here's the other piece. We have to be intentional about where we get our sports news. If your only feed is from outlets that see controversy before they see contribution, you're already drinking the Kool-Aid. That's why I tell folks, follow the independent, black-led coverage. Support the podcast, the blogs, the journalists who see these players as full human beings, not just headlines. Spend your social media currency wisely. That's how you push back against the machine. Not just by clapping back, but by building something stronger.
Exactly, Auntie. The whole point of Myers' framework is that empowerment in sports isn't just about playing well. It's about controlling how your story travels. The reason the machine works so well against players like Reese is because it counts on her voice being filtered through the same old media channels. But when she uses her own social media platforms, podcasts, and even partnerships that let her speak directly to fans, she's breaking that filter. That's narrative sovereignty. And once you got it, the institutions can't take it back without looking obvious. Reese on the court dominance is a big part of that control. You can argue with opinions, but you can't argue with the stat lines that prove you're elite. That's why every big performance matters beyond the scoreboard. It forces the media to cover her achievements, even though they'd rather dwell on some off-court drama. Pair that with public moments of resilience, smiling in faces of boos, showing up at post-game interviews unshaken, and she's sending a message: you can't break me, so you better learn to deal with me. That's a powerful pivot from being the subject of a story that's controlled by other authors. And here's the call to action. If we as fans say we support these athletes, we have to prove it by where we pay our attention. Click on features from Black sport journalists, not the hit piece. Share the interview where the athlete is speaking their truth, not the one that's chopping it into a scandal. Follow the platforms that are athlete-led, player-owned, or rooted in communities they come from. Because when we change the demand, the supply will follow. At the end of the day, Auntie, the media machine only works if we keep feeding it. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather starve the machine and feed the storytellers who are building something for us and by us and with us in mind. That's how you reclaim the game, and that's how you keep it.
Let's put it plain. Everything we walk through today is nothing new in Chicago. This city sports media has a long history of protecting the folks in power while putting Black athletes under the microscope. And the Chicago Sky, they're moving right in step with that pattern, whether it's deliberate or just baked into the system. Let's put it plain. Everything we walk through today is nothing new in Chicago. This city sports media has a long history of protecting the folks in power while putting Black athletes under the microscope. And the Chicago Sky, they're moving right in step with that pattern. Whether it's deliberate or just baked into the system, the effect is the same. Shift the blame off management, protect the brand, and make the players, especially the Black ones, carry the weight of the story. That's the imperfect union in action. We've seen how the media serves as the middleman for this machine. They package the tension, push it to the public, and before you know it, the whole conversation is about personality clashes instead of actual basketball. And let's be clear, these patterns don't just appear out of nowhere. They're built, they're maintained. The only way they stop us is if the people who watch, read, and share stop letting them set the frame for us. Call it out. Support independent voices. Demand better coverage. Because if we leave the pen in their hands, we already know how the story ends.
Right, and that's why the call to action is just real simple. Demand accountability from the sports media. Don't let them feed you one-side coverage without receipts. Support athlete-controlled narratives, where the player is the author, not the subject of someone else's agenda. Stay tapped into platforms like Cess Talk Sports and BY's Polysports Tea Time, where the storyteller centers around the athlete and the politics behind the game. Join us in building the Respect Her Game advocacy group. Because make no mistake, the sports arena is the new civil rights battleground, and the media is the number one weapon being used to target and dismantle Black athletes. Malcolm X told us 60 years ago that we must go through a complete political re-education if we want to be ready for this century's civil rights fight. That's exactly what we're doing here, using sports to give you a political playbook you need to challenge any narrative they throw at you. So stick with us, because in the next episode of Broken Skies, we're going deep into the Chicago Sky's exploitation of Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso and the politics of economics behind it. If you think today was revealing, just wait. We're about to follow that money.
This has been another Tea Time political throwdown, and where we don't just sip the tea, we brew it strong and serve it piping hot. Sports are never just about the games we play. They're about the stories we tell, the systems we expose and dismantle, and the political education we bring straight to you. If you're ready to keep learning, keep questioning, and keep supporting the players we love, head on over to Cess Talk Sports YouTube channel for our recorded Poly Sports broadcast. You'll find deep dives on Black women in sports and the politics surrounding them. Stories you won't hear anywhere else and angles the mainstream will never give you. Hit that subscribe button, share this with your crew, and come back to the table next time for more truth, more history, and more strategy for how we win on and off the court. Until then, man, y'all keep your eyes open, your mind sharp, and your tea ready. Y'all stay moving, stay tuned. Talk soon. Political ills, Cess, your favorite auntie with Uncle Tendencies. We out.